From Screen to Shelf.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of From Screen to Shelf. I am Chase, joined here with Will and Gabe, and it is a very exciting follow-up to one of our episodes we did last year. It's been 11 months, so finally we're dropping part 2 for the retrospect on the entire Friday the 13th series, because as of this recording and as of the time that this airs, it won't quite be Friday the 13th yet, but it will be Friday the 13th this Friday. So we figured we would go ahead and do that. And this time we're going to be talking about parts 5, 6, 7, and 8, because if you haven't checked it out already, we already did our breakdown and analysis. It's one of our earliest videos. We'll link it in the description, but we broke down parts 1 through 4 way back when. So we did rewatch these. We did reanalyze how we feel. I watch these movies every single year, and I was actually going to skip them, but I totally forgot we had this coming up. So
well, we were just talking about, did we actually rewatch them or no?
Yeah, like I rewatched all of them, and I never finished the second half of the Crystal Lake documentaries because I didn't want it to be from the next time we do it. I didn't want it to be like old memories. So I rewatched both of those because these are actually some of my favorite ones. I love the original 4, but I have a lot of praise for these ones because they're just so different and unique compared to the 4 that came before it. But yeah, let's Will, I know you were actively watching part 5 right before we hit record, so why don't you go ahead and open us up on how you feel about part 5, man? One of my favorite ones.
Yeah, so part 5, I mean, I was never really a fan of part 5. I will say this before we get started here. I think when we're probably going to give a ranking at the end of this, right?
Yeah, like last time.
We did with the last time. I definitely will say these were much easier to to distinguish from each other. You know, the first 4 are such. I kind of love all those movies. They're such classics that it was hard to kind of rank those. But with these, it was a little easier, which is always great. But you know, at the same time, as I was watching them again, I felt with 5 anyway. I'll start with that. I liked it much more than I thought I would. What is this? Probably like the 5th or 6th time that I've seen it. You know, I had fun with it. There's actually some really decent, there's some decent kills in this movie. I will say, like, the opening, it's funny, man. There's just some funny stuff in this movie, and part of it is the writing. Some of it's like the overacting and just how over the top it is. Even from the opening scene, it's what is it? Tommy Jarvis, Corey Feldman, who is, his career is like being revived by this this craze that's going on with Corey Feldman right now. But that being said, funny to see him at the opening of this, because he's in this movie for like, I don't know, that opening scene, and that's it, right? So they were trying to link it to the 4th film, which is my favorite probably in the franchise. Based on our last ranking, I ranked number 4. I think number 4 was, I don't know if it was 1, but I really love 4. I think part 4 is my favorite personally out of those first 4 entries. But 5 tries to pick up where that left off. And it's just funny, man. It's like these 2 guys are grave robbing, Jason's grave, and they dig him up, and he just wakes up and stabs one of the dudes, and you got Corey Feldman like oh like in the bushes. It's so goofy, so goofy. But I had fun with it, man. I had fun with it. Not my favorite out of these 4, but some of the characters are really memorable, like Reggie, like the little African American kid. Like, he's fun, I don't know. I just had fun with it. By no means is it anywhere close to 6, like on a technical level. And we'll get to that when we talk about 6, or part 6, I should say. But I liked it, definitely more than I thought I would, because I've had this stance for a long time. Like, it's because of the twist at the end. And obviously we can talk about it. Spoiler spoilers for those of you who, for some reason, if there's anyone watching this that hasn't seen part 5, like I don't know what to tell you by this point in time. But yeah, the fact that it's not Jason. I was always one of those guys, and I guess you can call me a purist. Like, oh, if it's not Jason, I don't want to watch it, right? And not that I'm not open to new things. I just think with this franchise, like they got into such a groove with Jason, with the last 3 installments. Other than the first, because obviously that's kind of a standalone film in itself, not taking the other 3 into account. But yeah, I feel like they got into a groove with Jason where they kind of figured out what worked and what worked really well. And I think 5 is the movie that starts to, or I guess I could say in many ways, somewhat derail that. So, I still kind of look at it the same way that I do about Jason in that regard. But at the same time, I was able to have a lot more fun with it this time around. So,
yeah. I mean, you didn't even mention the enchiladas, bro.
oh my God. You know what's my favorite scene in this movie? I was talking about it before we rolled briefly, but I didn't want to give into it. But we were talking about, you had mentioned it, Gabe, I think, when the kid gets chopped up, the kid that dies.
The fat kid, the compulsive eater one.
The compulsive eater, he's coming up with the candy bar and he's like talking to the other dude, and the other dude's chopping wood, and he I forget what the interaction was like exactly, but he like tells him he's not going to give him any part of the candy bar or something.
He's just like pestering him. He just didn't want to be bothered. He was actually giving him the chocolate bar. He puts it on the wood. He's like, here, if you want some later, here it is.
Later, yeah.
But the dude, like, I'm thinking the whole time, I'm like, why does this mentally ill patient have an axe? He's chopping wood. Like, what?
Yeah, let's give him an axe. Hey, we're trying to keep him busy, guys. It's fucking, this is his way back into society. Just give him something to do. Just have him chop wood for the fire. But anyway, the funniest part of that whole, or the culmination of that, is these paramedics show up. He's covered up in this sheet. You see all the blood stains on it. The fucking paramedic pulls the sheet off. All the bystanders, these kids, like scream in horror. And there's that other paramedic, like the blonde paramedic, who just kind of has this grin on his face, and he's like, pussies.
Yeah, pussies. He's chewing bubble gum and it pops.
He's like chewing bubble gum. Like, this would never fucking happen. Like, that guy would be fucking, I mean, nowadays anyway, like nobody would say that. Like, nobody fucking says that. But it's like shit like that in this movie it's just so over the top and so funny. Like I think I laughed out loud, during that scene.
It's just so cringe, bro. I just can't, like, I hate that scene. We were talking about this at the beginning too. I hate that. I mean, obviously spoilers, but I mean, that's one of the paramedics is the kid's dad, right? And you're like, you see his face. It's just like you don't know what the hell's going on. I'm like, what?
Hey, listen, he's still trying to process it. Okay, he's you got to give him some time here.
Oh my God, dude. But it's just like, really, like, that's how you guys handled this. Like, so like with this one, it's interesting because I actually respect it in the sense of it was trying to do something different, because like they had that ending with Jason and they're like, how can we kind of keep this franchise going? I got the impression they were trying to do almost like a Scream thing. Well, we'll just have like a different killer each Friday the 13th and go from there. But the problem is they just implement it so poorly, where it's like it's the one character you don't get any time with that's the actual killer. It's the the stupid paramedic making the weird face at the beginning, that's the killer, and you're just like, that's fucking dumb. That's dumb. But I always remember this one just because of the enchilada scene. Like, that's like my favorite scene of the whole movie for some reason, dude, where he's just like, oh, these enchiladas, and he's like running to the toilet, and I think his girlfriend was like shaking the porta potty or something like that, and he's like, babe, stop, stop. And I'm like, who does that? Who's shaking a porta potty while you're taking a shit? Oh, dude, it's just so funny.
Only back in the 80s, right?
Yeah, man. But this one, I do respect that it tried to do something different with that regard, but I also hate the fact that you really don't. They try to set up Tommy as like this new lead, or like protagonist or whatever he's being set up as, but there's a lot of parts of the movie where he's not even there. Like he's like kind of in the background. The one girl did a good job screen time, the blonde chick, I forget her name, that's like the assistant to the doctor or whatever. Like, I felt like she started turning into like the main lead, and then all of a sudden Tommy comes out at the end when they're in the barn, and I'm like, where have you been, bro, for the past like 45 minutes? Like, you've been gone or just like hallucinating or what?
He's just hallucinating out in the field.
Well, that's all he does in the whole movie. He's like, hallucinating and like looking in the mirror and thinks he sees Jason. That scene is cringe too, where he's out, the whole kind of like Michael Myers scene where he looks outside and Jason's standing out there.
Oh, he's just
And
standing there.
He's like this. He's like
he's holding his
and
eyes.
he opens his eyes and it's like, okay, he's gone. It's cool. I'm like, oh god, dude.
Oh man.
These are my least favorite ones. I think I was telling you guys this before. Rolling. These are just not my favorite. Right? These are probably like the worst segment of the series. Like I was like dreading to kind of even do this video just because I do not like these movies whatsoever. This one is definitely like lower tier for me. I do not like this movie. It's just so cringe, so bad. Even when it's on, I mean, there are funny scenes though. I'll give it that. It has a lot of funny scenes and one-liners and stuff like that. But it just doesn't do it for me. It's a disappointment, especially like what Will said after the final chapter, which is like a decent entry.
Yeah,
man. I think I surprised you guys. I think I had said it before we rolled, but this is actually one of my, I'd say top 4 in the entire franchise.
What?
I love part 5. Part 5 is just so zany, goofy, and something else that we don't bring up is it's very giallo inspired with the way that it shows its kills and stuff like that. So I love how they kind of presented it, and it really did try to be different outside of like how they just approached Jason. So that's one of the biggest reasons I liked it. The enchilada scene is phenomenal, man, and it's just so goofy. But also at the same point, I've just always loved how indestructible they try to like really make you think that it was Jason towards the end until they show you it's the paramedic, because dude's taking like major injury after major injury and still coming after these people like he's like a super zombie, dude. And then he just paramedic and I love it, dude. It's just so goofy, dude. I love it. This one is my favorite, like just out of like pure fun and enjoyment. Until we get to the next one. Next one's amazing, but this one I absolutely love it. It's different. I think it works for what it is. But yeah, that same scene with like the Tommy, and then especially the ending where it tries to make you feel some way about Tommy just to kind of like, I don't know, kind of not do it, but still kind of do it at the same time. It's just, it's pretty weird how they do it. It's like they execute and they're like, wait, maybe not. And they're like, maybe we did. We got
I didn't understand that ending at all. I never understood it. Like, I mean, I get what they're trying to do, but I just don't understand how he goes from, I hate Jason. He's like, messing with me mentally, but at the end he's like, I'll put on a mask and start stabbing people. I don't get it. I hated that ending.
It especially doesn't make sense with how part 6 starts up, especially. He's just an upstanding citizen in part 6.
Well, they negate it, right? It's like they don't even mention a lot of the ending of the last one.
No, they don't mention anything out of part 5. It's almost as if it's just like teenage Tommy Jarvis just
it was just a dream sequence the whole time.
Yeah, it was a fever dream. You didn't see anything. But I also want to bring up the amount of the kills that were just butchered. You're going to realize a common theme. Something I want to shout out for people that may, if we don't, we'll probably bring them up again, but there's an amazing over 7-hour documentary out there called Crystal Lake Memories, where it pretty much, you get about 45 minutes with each movie going up to the reboot. And there's some incredible segments on each of those. But the common theme, once you get to all the parts we're specifically talking about today, even some later ones, is they were heavily censored. Like a good chunk of their budget went to these scenes that never ended up making it into the movie. So then you just kind of get this like weird, like this one, it's trying to find its own identity and be giallo influence at the same time, while also probably trying to be gory. But I also know that they had to do some reshoots that were based off of that documentary. So definitely check that one out. Even if you are only a specific fan of some of the certain ones, you don't even need to watch all of it. You can rent the whole thing on Apple TV. But it's definitely worth a check out. It's really interesting, especially how massacred this specific one got, and another later entry later on.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think 5 was the worst one, but it was definitely one of the ones that got a little more. I mean, even then, there's still some decent moments in this. Like there's one I forget the character's name. Like his head rolls off after it gets chopped off. The redneck dude. So they still show definitely more than a later installment we're going to talk about, but definitely not the worst victim, I guess we can put it that way, of the MPAA.
I'm trying to remember that redneck dude. I remember he goes to the door of the neighbors. Like, he's just some random redneck dude that shows up. Like, yeah, I'll work. I'll do whatever you want me to do. Like, that was pretty
No,
much it.
so it's
It's the
that
mom.
it's the mom and the
Yeah.
it's like is it her son or is it her husband? I don't even remember.
It's like
It
her
was her
son or
son
something. But they remember
because
there's a guy that goes to her door though and knocks and he's like,
Yeah.
you know, can you like feed me or whatever? And she's like, if you clean all the shit out the chicken coop.
Oh, yeah,
Like who
yeah.
was that dude? He just randomly like shows up just to
Yeah,
get
he just randomly
stabbed.
shows up. Yeah.
Like he's pointless. There's no point in him being in the movie. Like because he goes to the forest and he watches the couple have sex or something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then he ends up getting stabbed, and I was like, so what the fuck was the point of this guy?
Pushes
Like, I
the
don't
plot,
know.
man.
It's just body count, man.
Pushes the body
He
count.
pushes
Dude.
the plot. The
That's
very strong narrative that's present here.
Shut
Without
up,
him, it would have all
Jason.
fallen apart.
Fucking strong narrative. Oh man.
It was
Oh,
quite a
man.
piece until that part.
Hey man, I
Dude.
still even with these movies, bro, I'm still gonna try to push some kind of at least some quality that has to be in it that pushes the narrative a little bit. I was just wondering
look
about
no
him though.
further.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, I agree with Will. This is kind of the lower tier out of the four for me. I'm surprised, Chase, that when we started the video where you said like these are like some of your favorites. I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I only don't really flat out. I think the worst Friday the 13th is in this set, which we'll get to. But I also think one of, if not probably the best made, is in this quartet of movies right here as well. So it's actually quite interesting. Which I mean, I guess that's a perfect segue. I can open that that part off, and you guys can transition. But part six is just excellently made. There's really not a lot that I can really say about it. This is really gives you the modern Jason that really comes for like the next half of the series that you get, and what everything is kind of molded by. Where he's not just like, because in the older movies, and especially with like 5, especially since it wasn't Jason, it was an actual person, he's not presented to be like the most supernatural thing in the entire world. This is where you start getting supernatural Jason. This is where you start getting like the hulking strength. He was already a brute, but like I mean, damn, with the way they make him seem, he could pick up a house and just throw it at you like 10 miles away, like they really tried to go that far. I really like the character of Tommy on here, and I really do like the finale, the part with the fire on the water. I think that part is excellently
Badass.
done. Yeah, there's just this one was Tom McLaughlin, if I'm right, for the director.
You're talking about the director? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that he probably showed the most care since 4. I mean, that's only one gap, but this one is very easily one of the most well-made ones outside of 4. If I had to have a peer debate on which one had the absolute best quality, it would be this one versus 4, and I don't know who I could really put on top. I might just say 6 for the sake of like it's actually coherently put together, and it's very, very fluid. It's very solid. It's not perfect. But 4, you also do get our first introduction of Tommy, but this is also our last venture with Tommy at the same time.
Yeah.
So they both have their own strong suits. But this one is easily, while it's not my favorite one, like it's not the one I'm going to always go for on rewatch. My favorite one out of these is 5. I just stupid fun, turn your brain off. This one's probably the best quality out of the entire series, and this is one that you should always rewatch. It really just defines and gives us the Jason that we know and still consume to this day. This was the turning point. They really came back, and they really, really tried to execute with it. So this one I absolutely love.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to shit on this one just because it and it does something different too. It actually has like a little bit more action than the other ones too.
It's a bit actiony at some points.
Yeah, there's some action-esque kind of scenes, like and it's the narrative for the most part makes sense. Like me with narrative, I still have to talk about the fucking plot even in a Friday the 13th movie, but it makes sense. And you still with Tommy, like you can kind of at least relate to him and understand what he's trying to do and all that shit. So I mean, I enjoy this one, and it has a lot of like just really good kills in it. This is the one with like the sleeping bag kill, right, where he takes the sleeping bag.
No,
or that's the next
7
one.
Shit, see, I'm starting to mix them up. I should have rewatched them. But yeah, no, I mean, yeah, dude, it's been a minute since I've seen this one. This is the one where like you guys had the at the end with like the ring of fire around the boat with Tommy on the boat. Okay, and then the chain where he chained him down at the bottom of the lake, right?
Yeah, that's this one.
Yeah. This one I liked it just because it is kind of like the classic Jason. I mean, I think it sets the foundation for that, and they do it really well. The beginning's kind of corny though. I never understood the whole thing of Tommy
The
wanting to
lightning.
go back. Well, I mean
Yeah.
that too, but it's like, why are
He
you
wants to
going back to
cremate
like?
him or something, right? He wants
He's
to.
already dead
I
in the
think,
fucking ground. It's like, yeah, I want to fucking cremate
yeah,
him.
I want to kill him
he needs to
again.
be sure. He wants,
Yeah.
he needs to kill him twice.
And he
And
needs to
it's
be
like,
deader than dead.
yeah, deader than
Yeah.
dead. It's so corny, dude. And like this set the precedent for like Jason reviving with electricity for some reason. Like electricity
Mhm.
just kind of does the trick with him.
Fucking damn lightning storm, man. That
the-
fucked everything up for him.
But yeah, I like this one a lot. Actually, this is probably one of my top Friday the 13th ones. I never really have too much negative to say about this one. It's just a good slasher movie.
Yeah, it's like the most popcorny, I would say, out of almost anything that
Mhm.
even comes after it. Like it's the easiest one to just sit down and have a good experience, have some good thrills, have some good kills, sit down and watch popcorn. 90 minutes later, you're done. You know, and there's going to be some points where you kind of point and laugh at your TV because it's corny, and there's going to be some points where like you're just like fuck yeah, you know, you're just like really into it. So yeah, 6 I think is probably one of the easiest to access. You know, 4 is the culmination of like a quadrilogy to a degree. This
Mhm.
one is starting or trying to start something completely new. So that's why I like
Yeah.
that one so much. So much.
What about you, Will, with part 6? Any closing thoughts on part 6?
Yeah, I mean, there's not much I can add. You guys are, both made some great points. I will say this, like 5, if you're not a fan of 5, this is definitely one that you could watch like right after 4, and it still has some kind of continuity there with Tommy's character, right? Especially the way that they handle Tommy at the end of 5. But yeah, I mean, I think the opening, dude, it's other than him getting resurrected, yeah, it is a little cheesy, but again, this is like zombie Jason, which I love,
Mhm.
in a way. So
Mhm.
yeah, man, I think it's a lot of fun. It's probably my favorite out of, these 4 that we're going to talk about. I think, like Chase said, it's the most consistent in terms of the narrative. If you compare it with 4, these are definitely probably arguably the 2 most well-made films in the franchise, 4 and
Yeah.
6, that is. So,
Mhm.
I mean, I don't want to be nitpicky, but yeah, you could there's definitely plot holes in 6, right? I mean, I think there's pros and cons to it if you were to compare those 2, but I'd rank it up there with 4 in terms of my enjoyment, but also on a technical level, I think it's one of the most well done. But yeah, man, I can't really argue with anything you guys said. All great points. Like, it's definitely a fun slasher movie. The kills in this one are much better than in 5.
Yeah, they're
You
great.
get a little more gore, like some really good kills in this one. So yeah, I can't argue that at all. And yeah, I'm a big fan of how they handled Jason in this. Like Chase said, I think this is one of those movies that people look to when they think of Friday the 13th. Like, what embodies Jason, or what does Jason embody? Like, what we
Yeah.
think of as Jason. This movie kind of nails that. And yeah, as far as that ending, it's probably one of the best endings in the franchise in terms of that final
Conflict.
confrontation.
Yeah.
I love that. That's really well
Yeah.
done. Love the whole idea of that. So yeah, one of my favorites for sure.
Did this one have a higher budget? Oh, go ahead, Chase.
No, I was gonna point out there's actually one of the funniest scenes in the entire series is in this one. But I believe I don't remember which characters. I think it's Tommy. He's like, I want to make sure of this. I want to make sure of that. And then it's like broad daylight, and you've got like the crypt keeper or whatever the hell he's supposed to be, like the
Oh
janitor of
yeah.
the cemetery. It's like he just like watches the person pass by, and then he like half cockedly looks at the camera, and like he's shaking his little flask, and he's like, oh,
Yeah.
and it's like
Yeah.
he's just so intensely into it. He's so animated and cartoonish, and the whole vial is just shaking so violently. It's literally, I don't know what about it, but that scene makes me actually laugh really hard every
It's like
time.
a breaking the fourth wall almost kind of deal. Like he's like
It's so
staring at the
weird.
camera. Yeah, I remember
Yeah.
that. Yeah, that
Yeah.
Gravekeeper's kind of funny. I wish they did more with him, to be honest.
Give him his own movie. Fuck it.
I don't know about that, but
Spinoffs galore.
what was the budget for 6? Because I felt like something else I wanted to say. I mean, you guys pretty much said it too. Like it's pretty well shot. Like I felt like this one had like just a higher like production quality, I would say.
Oh, easily.
Yeah,
19.5 million.
19.5
Or
million.
no, 3 million, 19.5 million intake at the box office.
Do we
Oh,
know how
okay.
much 5 made? Because I'm curious whether or not they wanted to really up the ante with this one just to kind of make up for 5. Because I'm curious how 5 performed. And
About the same, actually. 2.2 million
okay.
budget, 21.9 box office. So with the lower budget and the higher intake at the box office, It's pretty much technically A New Beginning was a little bit more successful.
Okay.
Yeah, so this got a little bit of bump in terms of the production value.
Yeah. Oh, and we got to bring up the paintball kills when they're
Oh,
trying to
God.
paintball fucking Jason
Awesome,
to death.
Fucking awesome.
That's actually a pretty long sequence. And
Mhm.
that's what I was talking about in terms of like the actionist kind of scenes. Cause like I think there's like a car chase happening while it's like cutting back to the paintball stuff. Wasn't like Tommy like driving away from the sheriff or something like that. And then like while that's happening, it's like the whole paintball sequence, which was actually pretty long.
Yeah, it was a
Hmm.
really long sequence. Yeah, it's like Jason is like encountering the guy and he keeps just trying to paintball him to death, and he's
Yeah.
like so stunned that this guy's not just toppling over lifeless. He's just so stunned about it. Yeah, part 6 is great. So much fun, man.
It's a solid movie, man. I like it.
And then yeah, that one part 6 actually, as far as I'm aware, was still messed with by the MPAA, but it wasn't that heavily butchered. Kind of in the same thing with part 5.
Mhm.
But I think that's a perfect segment and segue into part 7, the absolute best one, the pinnacle of the entire series.
I don't know. I had to rewatch this one, dude, because I remember I didn't like watching it the first time.
Really? I know Will and I were talking before you joined, but we really, really like this one. What are your thoughts on it?
I don't know, dude. Let me say this. I like the main character.
I
Will's like,
I'm not necessarily no. I
no.
don't know if I misspoke, but I am not the biggest fan of it.
No, I was kidding. We
He's
both
like,
Okay,
absolutely.
good. I was
interject
gonna
and
say,
say
wait,
that.
no.
I will say
Don't let
I
the record
like
show.
I like the main character, whatever her name is. I think she's a good lead.
Lar Park. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean you have this whole telekinesis shit going on. It's just kind of weird because it just doesn't. I feel like it doesn't really fit the template or the vibe of the series in general. But I get what they were trying to do, but it's just so. I don't know,
So
man. I just
bad.
didn't care. It's so bad. Yeah, I just don't care about the characters. I don't care about her. Her killing her dad is hilarious, by the way. Like he's on this like dock and it's like shaking back and forth, and I'm like, bro, like either jump off or like turn around and run. But he's just on it like, and
I'm
it's,
glued here.
yeah, I can't move, and it's like it takes forever for the thing to fall down. But the whole twist with the doctor too, just trying to like like kind of exacerbate her like telekinesis shit, and
So terrible.
it's just so bad, dude. I just didn't care, and especially a lot of the characters next door, the house next door with all the teenagers and the preppy rich girl, and I didn't. They're just so freaking annoying. And most of these movies, I will say, like a lot of the characters are annoying. That's why they're so enjoyable to to watch in terms of like them getting killed. But like these were like, can you please kill these characters off as soon as possible?
Quicker.
Like I'm just done. Yeah, I'm just done. And the whole freaking part at the end, dude, with the dad like coming back to life, like he's the one that drags Jason back to the to the lake. I didn't understand it at all. I didn't get it. It's just not a good movie. She's a good lead. I think that they actually chose a good lead, but they just really just butchered the whole story with Jason, and it just didn't fit the template for the rest of the series.
What do you think about the chemistry between her and the lead actor?
Oh, I don't give a shit about them.
Bro, dude, the chemistry was so distracting, dude, with how awful it was. Like these are two people that clearly, probably behind the scenes, didn't really have a lot like to really bond over or have some common interest, because it's like two strangers meeting on screen for the first time every single time they're on screen. It's so uncomfortable to watch too.
Yeah, I mean the acting's so bad too in this one. Like the acting's just like really, really bad. Like I remember the one scene with the doctor, like where he uses the mom as like a human shield almost. Like he's about to get stabbed, and he just takes the mom. He's like, and then Jason just like stabs the mom. I'm like, what the fuck is this, dude? Like, it's just so bad.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting because this one, the only reason why it even started getting the telepathy approach was because they wanted it to actually feature Carrie herself. That was the original idea behind it. And it just never panned out because of rights. So they ended up just writing it because they wanted to kind of not really cash in on the tropes, but Carrie was super popular, did really, really, really well. So they really wanted to capture and encapsulate that as much as possible, which is why a lot of slasher series around this time have a telepathy-based movie around this time frame. And I'm going to let the record show, I think the only good telepathy horror movie I've ever seen is Scanners. I don't like telepathy. It's my least favorite trope in any type of horror movie. If it has to do with it, it's just so terrible. That's why I was so hesitant to see Carrie, which I think is a masterpiece in the genre.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I was so hesitant to see it, because I was like, dude, I'm gonna hate it. I don't like that kind of stuff. I just think it's so dumb. If you aren't Charles Xavier, I don't care. Like I just
Well, it
don't.
makes you like OP too at the same time. Like at the end when she's
Exactly.
fighting Jason and she's just doing all this shit, like throwing
the gas.
the gas at him and all this other stuff, like the
Yeah.
hardware tools. And I'm just like, you could have done this shit like, earlier in the movie.
You could have even just done it with your own bare hands.
Yeah.
Like, so this one I got to give some massive props to. First, Kane Hodder, who I believe has 4 appearances. I think you count his, because that was him and Jason Goes to Hell. I'm pretty sure. I think he has 4 appearances, so you get our iconic movement style as well in this one. Our iconic, like what most people like, is Jason, and then you have that much more zombified look this time around, like his whole spine and like parts of his back
I love the
showing. I
spine.
like the design.
That
Yeah,
looks dope.
I think this one might be my favorite design, and I know this one has its fans because I'm usually defending myself when I really don't like this movie. I think I gave it 1.5 stars. I really, really don't like this movie. Another thing I implore people to do, now I know like in the documentary they talk about it, but over half of the kills pan away. So like earlier you had brought up the sleeping bag kill. If you go back and rewatch that, really pay attention. They use quick cut editing to really get that gore away, to get the rating that they were looking for. It's like when he picks her up with the sleeping bag, and then like right before she makes contact with the tree and bends, it cuts to Jason's face, then goes right back to him just tossing her on the ground. It's like, damn, they were really coming at you that hard. You had to just cut somebody getting hit from a tree like that, because it's one of my favorite kills still, even with just the insinuated violence. I just think it's until you sleeping person on ground.
Yeah,
And you just, you bam them against the tree. But I gotta point out the goofy ass stuff in this one, man. Like the part where she's like confronting Jason in the living room, and then she looks into like the plant, and there's like the awfully painted face, like the prosthetic face of her. I believe that was her mom.
Yeah.
That's just sitting there at the bottom of the pot of the plant. And then she picks up the whole plant with her mind and not only throws her mom's head, but the entire plant at Jason. But he gets so stumbled from it. And it's a tiny ass little tree, dude. That'd be like throwing a paper airplane at Jason. And he's just like, oh shit, I'm stunned. Stun grenade. And
Yeah.
it gets really goofy, dude. I don't like the chemistry, what they're trying to do. It's just, personally, I can see why it works for some people. I could see how it could be your absolute favorite. There have been people that told me that there's some really cool parts in this. It's just whenever it comes to that, I just don't think this one's it. I think it's horribly made. There was too much intervention from the rating boards, and the idea of telepathy to begin with was stupid. I just don't know why do it. It's like, I get Carrie was popular, but the box office numbers that you took in don't reflect that.
Hey, what did this make in the box office for?
I have it up right now. 1 second. Budget of 2.8 and a intake of 19.2.
Okay,
so it made a lot of money in.
It was kind of like almost the prior installment.
They pretty much performed very, very similarly, if I remember right. Yeah, they all performed pretty similarly.
Interesting.
Yeah. Do you guys know what was going on at the time? Because I know it was heavily influenced by Carrie, but I mean, what was this, 1988? I mean, Carrie was like, God, like almost a decade earlier when that was out. So
yeah,
I'm trying to just picture why there was suddenly like a resurgence in those type of movies, or those, movies that were kind of inspired by that. I don't know if you guys happen to know anything about that. I was just thinking about
personally.
that now.
I don't know if does that documentary talk about it, Chase, the one that you're watching?
In regards to like Carrie, no, they just said that they just wanted to capitalize on like that. Right. It was just a super popular movie.
That's interesting.
I don't know why. I mean, that's an absolutely great point, because I mean,
it's like years apart.
Yeah.
12 years. Yeah. 76.
Halloween has a they've got or at least the empathic kid in Halloween 5, right? Is that the one that has the like?
5 is like Jamie Lloyd. She kind of has this, I guess, a telepathic connection to Michael. Yeah, but Halloween 5, that was, because 4
89.
was in 88 and 5 was in 89. So yeah, pretty much around that same time period, those, we started to see this kind of stuff creep into to different movies. Seems like.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great point. Almost 10 years later, why? But also
Mm.
at the same time, we gotta take a step back and remember that like movies were touring theaters forever. So Carrie could have been
Mhm.
playing in theaters for
Yeah, it could have
shit
been
4 or 5.
re-released or something. Yeah.
Yeah, just playing at the Grindhouse down there and stuff like that. It
Yeah.
could have been around for a while, just like Texas Chainsaw was. All of that.
Yeah.
So that's food for thought on that. But I mean, it is a great point to bring up. Why all of a sudden, like, hey, you guys remember this movie
Yeah.
from 10 years ago? We
It's
should
like, let's do
capture.
Yeah.
telekinesis.
Let's
Some of it
capitalize on
could
that.
be that it's, they introduced that whole we were talking about with Jason Lives, like the supernatural element. So maybe they were just trying to push more of that, especially
Yeah.
like, oh, if he's already
Yeah.
like, kind of getting invincible, like who do we have that can kind of go against that as a protagonist? But it just doesn't work. Because then it starts becoming laughable.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
just think there's too much going on, and again, it's just not well written to begin with, so it's
Mhm.
just kind of turns into a mess. But I mean, this movie didn't have a lot to really help it. The story wasn't the strongest. You had the whole like you guys were saying, the Carrie versus Jason dynamic. From its inception, seemingly, right? So it's like thinking of that, it's like I don't want to see that. I just want to see Jason, and I feel like that's why this movie didn't get a lot of love. But the whole stuff with it being heavily censored, like Chase was saying, there's another movie that I mentioned. Well, I didn't mention the movie, but I mentioned that there's another horror movie that came out this year that didn't get at all any kind of censorship, really, based on what I've been reading, and that is The Blob, which is one of my favorite movies, the Blob remake.
Yeah.
I mean, dude,
Hmm.
that movie
That was pretty
literally had
graphic.
people melting.
Yeah.
Like, and
Great
yet they
effects
couldn't get any of the kills in this movie,
to just
past
go through.
the ratings board. That's what's just really, I guess you could say, kind of fucked up about it, because a movie like The Blob, which I love, nothing against The Blob, it's just that movie came out the same year. And I don't know, Chase, I think you've seen it, Gabe. I don't know if you've seen the
No, I haven't seen
remake
the
there of The
remake.
Blob.
No.
It's pretty graphic at times, like, to
Yeah,
be
it's
completely
great.
honest, and it's like gross out graphic, which is great. Like, for its
Mhm.
time, it's like, that era, like one of the best, I guess you could say, practical effects movies of those like few years, and this is years after The Thing. The Thing was like
Mhm.
82. So this is the late 80s by this point. So yeah, it just kind of sucks that, regardless of what, anybody thinks about the movie, I don't think it's fair to really judge it on that, to be honest, because again, it didn't really get a fair shake with the ratings board, having to be heavily censored. Like, the kills are what make these movies what they are, and the fact that this movie really didn't get the chance to showcase that just kind of sucks. And if you guys have seen the footage, Chase and I were kind of talking about it earlier before we
Mhm.
rolled. There's kills in this movie, Gabe, that didn't make the cut, that could have been some of the best kills in the franchise
Yeah,
easily,
easily.
Mhm.
easily.
Some great kills.
And I felt like, that would have saved this movie,
Yeah.
if not anything else. So it really is unfortunate on that, in that regard.
The
So
ratings boards were just so weird back in the day. Because I remember, I think I told
yeah.
this story before on another episode, but the whole like Taxi Driver, and you saw
Oh
Taxi
yeah.
Driver finally, Chase. Yeah, the whole thing with
Finally.
Scorsese talking about the
Oh, they had to
scene
change
with all the
the
blood in the hallway.
color of
Yeah,
the
they had to
blood.
change.
Yeah.
He's like, I didn't know what else to do. I changed the color of the blood, and all of a sudden now it's rated R, and it's okay to release. And it's like, really? Like
So
that's
weird.
what you need to do. So I don't know, the ratings boards back in the day, they had some weird kind of like criteria in terms of what was an R and what was an X rating and all that stuff.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's super wild. Yeah. This movie is probably the most excessively butchered out of all of
Hmm.
them.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, that's a
not my
perfect
favorite
segue.
though.
Yeah, this one, I'd say this one's the worst one. I think this is the worst one in the entire series, which is saying a lot because there's,
Mm.
as much as this is my favorite horror series, there's a lot of stinkers in this one.
I don't know if it's
But
the worst for me, but
I just think you're a full-time hater of these ones, man.
probably,
That's a
but
perfect segue into your favorite one, though.
yeah, dude, this one
Part
I had
8.
to rewatch. Yeah,
Yeah,
not
you were fresh just off the rewatch. Well,
yeah.
Will was watching it as we were coming on here, but how about you go ahead and spill the beans on everything Part
Yeah,
8?
man. I mean, so they're like, what else can we do with Jason? So it's like, let's freaking bring him to New York City. Why
Fuck it, put him in
not?
New
Like,
York.
screw it, New York City. And I remember seeing, I searched up some of the YouTube stuff too, like the promos where he's like slashing through the I Love New York like sign or whatever. Like it's so corny, it's so bad. But the problem I remember that at least resonated with me when I first saw this a while back was, and we were talking about when we were rolling, like the whole notion of like this is Jason in Manhattan, but 2/3 of the movie he's on a cruise ship to Manhattan. Like it's like he's rarely in Manhattan. And that was the problem I had back in the day when I watched it. And then I started watching it again recently, and I was like, okay, this is the problem I had with this movie. It's like this is not Jason, takes over Manhattan. It's what was the title you said, Chase, before we rolled? It's like
Jason takes a cruise.
Jason takes a cruise. Pretty much. I mean, it's just so, oh god, dude, it's just so fucking. I don't care about anything in this movie, like whatsoever.
Dude, I think it has one of the best kills in the entire series in this one.
Which kill?
The boxing kill, dude. What?
Oh my god, dude, I hate that. Dude, I always laugh at that one. Like that.
It's so good.
It's like, I mean, it's funny watching it. Like, it's like, they're in this boxing match on the rooftop. It looks like a fucking Super Nintendo game.
Yeah, he just Mortal Kombat fatalities him. Bro.
Yeah, dude. It's a funny sequence to watch, but it's just like, I just hate this fucking movie so much, dude. I hate the sequence too when like this is what probably my least. Oh, dude, I hate this movie so much. Like, you don't understand. I actually think I'd prefer 7 over 8. I shit you not.
That's crazy, dude.
I don't like this movie at all. So, like, because I hate the scene. I fucking can't stand this scene. I hate it. The when the cop car crashes, right? And then like she's like having memories of the dude or her uncle pushing her off of the boat. Like she's like, you pushed me off the water or off the boat. And I'm like, what? I'm like, what made you remember this? Like, like I don't understand. Like, why are you having this flashback? And really, why is it important? Like, who gives a shit? Like, I don't care. It's just so corny and bad. It's just like I don't care about any of the characters. I don't care about the lead. Like I said, at least in 7, I thought she was an interesting lead. I thought she had like an interesting kind of, like history, so to speak. But this girl, I don't give a shit, dude. Like, I don't give a shit about any of the characters. I don't give a fuck about her uncle. The whole sequence with the freaking kids, like recording the uncle, like having sex, and then they're gonna use it as blackmail, but then that never turns into anything. I don't fucking know.
That was pretty stupid. That whole thing.
It's this movie's trash, dude. I can't stand it. I will say, I do like the whole at the end when they're in the tunnels and she throws like the toxic waste at him.
Yeah.
Like, and he has like, the fucking mask kind of melts off, and that should look kind of cool. But I mean, the rest of it's so dumb. And then at the end, you think you're gonna get that Friday the 13th ending, and it's a fucking dog. But at the end, like it's like, okay, it's the dog, and it's over. And I just wasted an hour and a half of my life. So yeah, that's Friday the 13th Manhattan for you.
What do you think? It's a half-star movie, dude?
I'm trying to think what
he's thinking about it.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know. I think I don't know. I'd have to think about that. Maybe 1 star, just because the boxing match is funny. Like that is pretty funny.
Yeah, it's great, dude.
Yeah, I mean, and he's the fucking. I hate the opening sequence too, where they're like telling the legend of Jason, and then he's revived by the fucking electricity, like the fucking boat's dragging the wire, the cable, and it just so happens like it's just so bad. I hate it, dude. It's so bad. Never was a fan of this movie, and now I remember why after rewatching it. But I mean, you guys can take over the mantle from here because I have nothing positive to say about this one.
We'll go for it.
I like it, but yeah, I agree. It's like the first, and I always questioned it as well. Even when I was younger, like, well, wait, how does he? They're taking a boat somehow from fucking Camp Crystal Lake to Manhattan. Like, it doesn't make any fucking sense. It's just stupid.
I want to see the fucking map
stupid.
And see where they're coming from because
like where did they figure this? Like, I mean, and this just goes to show it's like, well, if you just suspend disbelief, like I can't fucking suspend disbelief like that. Like, there's no way that this fucking even happens.
I believe Jason getting resurrected by lightning before I geographically accept the trip from Camp Crystal Lake to New York City.
Yeah, I mean the kills are good. That's really all that I kind of take away from this movie at this point is the kills. I think we're pretty sure we get Kane Hodder again, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
With this one, so like Chase was saying with the last one, you kind of have that. That iconic movement style of Jason, that Kane brought to the series. And that's always fun. I mean, frankly, it's like, again, I rewatch a lot of these movies just for that kind of stuff. I'm not looking at it really from a technical perspective, although I will say, you know, when they are technically executed better, you know, it does help, you know, in a lot of ways. But with Manhattan, yeah, there's some cool kills in here. Like the boxing fight is like one of the funniest things I've ever
The
seen. I
guitar
just
one
love
I
that.
like too. Like
The
when he
guitar,
takes the guitar.
I was
Yeah.
gonna ask you what you thought about the guitar one. That's one of my
Yeah, I
favorites.
do. So I'll give it a
I
star
do like
because the
that one.
guitar one is pretty cool.
You know, I mean, there's cool ones. It's like there's the one with the broken glass where he kills a woman in the bathroom. I mean, there's some fun stuff. The gore is a little more, you know, prevalent than in the last one, obviously. So that's always a plus. But yeah, other than that, man, I do agree with the character work though. I think although 7 is probably my least favorite out of these 4, I think the lead in 7 was much stronger. Like I didn't care about really anybody in this movie, other than Jason, to be completely honest. So
I was rooting for
that's
him to
really
win.
my one takeaway. So yeah, I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of 8. I think 8 for some reason it gets a lot more love nowadays, especially with the whole like the connection to Scream and like people making references with that, you know, after the last Scream installment. It's weird. It's like this movie has kind of found its resurgence, so to speak, as
Yeah.
of late.
I'm
Which
here for it.
I mean, yeah, I can jump on that too, but at the same time, it's kind of like you said. It's like, you know, well, he's not really in New York until the last third of the movie, so it's kind of, you know, misleading in that regard, I guess we can say. But yeah, I don't know. Like being on the ship, that's kind of a cool setting. I just wish the springboard
shorter.
for that was
Yeah.
was more, you know, thought out. You know, and like,
Yeah.
dude, they could have found other ways to get him on the fucking ship. Like they didn't have to leave from Camp Crystal Lake on the ship. Like it just doesn't make sense. You know, and
Will's
again,
always
that's
gonna
a
have a
big
problem
thing
with
for a
that.
lot of people.
He wants it mapped out, bro. He wants to see a map where
I
the
do.
fucking
I do.
Yeah.
How do you feel? Because they bring it up in that documentary. Did you remember that segment?
Well, in the yeah, I do remember them talking about it. What do you think? Well, I want to get your thoughts, Chase, because that's I was actually going to ask you about that because I didn't know. I was like, okay, he's either going to ask me or mention it, but what do you think about that?
So, okay, so the only slack I give them, they still don't explain it, but it starts off on a smaller
They
boat,
kinda
then goes
don't.
to the cruise ship, you know? So, like,
Right. Well,
now we just got to figure out what fucking canals this small ship
fucking ridiculous. It's
to get to the cruise
ridiculous.
ship. And how did Jason, because it shows him on the smaller one, but it just shows him after he takes the people out on the smaller one. It just shows him climbing up the chain on the actual cruise ship just randomly. But
Yeah.
their cope with it in the documentary was that Camp Crystal Lake's in New Jersey, so it's not that far to New York.
It doesn't matter. It's fucking dude. It doesn't matter how far it is. It could be right down the fucking street. You need to be able to get there. You know?
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Oh,
That was kind of their whole thing. But yeah, dude, that one actually didn't stick out to me until I watched the documentary. I was like, actually, now that they bring that up, how the fuck did Jason get up there? And they can't even explain it. They're just like, yeah, suspend disbelief. I think it's shot well on the boat, like the rest of the movie.
Yep.
There's inherently nothing redeeming. I think this movie is perfectly fine. It's just the second they get into New York, I think it just ramps up and it's just so much more fun. It's not perfect, but
well,
I
that's
just
kind of
love
why
it.
I wish it was set in New York for most of the movie. I feel like if they like with Scream, right? I think that served Scream in a lot of ways, and I think they benefited from that in a lot of ways. And it was one of those things when I first watched the Scream film, I thought about this movie. It's like, damn, if they only did that with this and fucking, you know, you wouldn't have that whole thing with the boat like just lingering in the back of your mind the whole time. Because I'm sorry, man, it's like stuff like that. It's hard to get around sometimes for some people, and maybe it's just me, but I know I'm not alone when I say that because I know a lot of people that feel that same way about it. Like just doesn't make any sense. It's hard to kind of just invest into a movie and kind of let that go. You know what I mean? Like with a movie like this, like you want to let it go and have fun, and like you really need to try hard to do that. At least, you know, at least I do. So, but yeah, man, I wish
was like Electricity Resurrection, fine, but I need to see the itinerary right now.
no, Electricity Resurrection is still fucking ridiculous, but
it's crazy.
Geography is
fucking
geography.
goddamn map. Okay. No, I do
man.
think it would have benefited if they had found a way to just get him to New York other than the way that they did, but make that
Yeah.
the majority of the movie. Even if it was another third longer in New York than it was, I think it would have served it much better. Because, yeah, I agree 100%, Chase. I think this movie doesn't really go anywhere for me other than the kills on the boat, which are cool.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really go anywhere for me in terms of momentum until he gets to New York. So,
Yeah, the second he gets there, like with the which one, the alleyway scene, that one
the
when the guy
alleyway
is like,
Oh
scene's
yeah,
cool.
the
yeah,
dude's like shooting him.
yeah,
Yeah.
and he's just boom, boom, and then takes him out. But we also got to address the elephant in the room. They try to narratively make it make sense, but the absolutely bonkers and random Jason, like hallucinations of like little Jason that one lady is having, our lead,
Oh,
and
yeah,
then
that's
at
fucking
the
weird.
end, the
Mhm.
fucking toxic waste turns him back into a little
Yeah,
boy.
it turns him
Yeah.
back into a small fucking
Dude.
child.
Yeah, I didn't understand that. I literally had to rewind it because this was one I did rewatch because I'm like, I didn't pay attention last time. I rewinded that. I was like, what the fuck? I was like, why is he like
Yeah.
in his underwear just there? And I'm like, I don't understand what this means. I'm like, is this some deep fucking psychological theme of like Friday the 13th? I don't get it.
Yeah, no, you're not missing much on that one. Just horribly written in. I don't think it's the worst
I
one in
do
the
like
series. I don't even think
the
it's the bottom
marketing, though.
4.
I
The
think
marketing
the
was cool.
marketing is really cool. Like, the I Love New York poster, that's still
Mhm.
one of the coolest posters. Like, again, like, there's definitely,
It would have
things about it that
benefited
I think are great,
like what
but
you said. Well, I agree. It's like when you watch like Scream 6, where it's like they took advantage of like, the whole kind of like crowded New York thing, whether it's like the convenience store scene or the subway scene or like, just all this like different cultural stuff of New York. Like that movie really took advantage of. And this one, if they had done something similar, would have been really cool. Like I would love to see like Jason in one of those settings. I think the closest you get, like in my mind, like the best shot of the movie is when he's like walking past those like 4 punk kids, the one that you're talking about, Chase, where
Yeah, the
he
boombox.
kicks,
I
yeah, he
fucking
kicks the
love it.
boombox,
the
and then
boombox,
like
yeah.
they're like, "Hey, you fucking with us?" And he
Yeah,
takes
he's
off the mask. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's the most like New York that you get in the whole fucking
Yeah.
movie, and it's like
Yeah.
1 minute long.
But they could have had, like you were saying, Gabe, they could have taken that kind of aesthetic and that vibe
Mhm.
and they could have ran with that for the majority of the movie and had
100%.
those like comedic elements to it that just make it fun and make it enjoyable. And at least it would have been, I just think, more than what we got. It's like Jason Takes Manhattan. You hear that title, you're like, oh shit, okay, this is cool. It's like, well, wait, he's gonna take the fucking Block Island Ferry for fucking 2/3 of the movie before we get there. So
Yeah, it's a
yeah,
weird movie,
just
man.
kind of falls short for me ultimately. But
Yeah.
All right, guys. I think that's a perfect segue into our rankings. Gabe, you rip it off since you're heated off of
Let's
Jason Takes
say,
Manhattan.
yeah. I mean, let's say 6. 6 obviously is the top one. I think all of us are probably gonna say 6. I feel Chase is gonna say something different just because he's weird. So let's say
I always gotta be
6.
different.
Let's say 6, 5, 7, and 8 is probably my ranking.
Damn.
Yeah.
What about you, Will?
I'm gonna do 6. I was actually gonna put I'm gonna put 7 last. So I'm gonna do 6, 5, 8, and then 7.
Yeah, that's not too far off of mine. Mine's just 5, 6, 8, 7. I just absolutely love 8. It's just once they get to New York, it's just a ton of fucking fun. Like if I
Yeah.
can like when I watch it, I don't really care for what's going on the boat. I just go to the last 30 minutes sometimes. When during my rewatches, I just straight to New York. All right, cool. We just saved some time in my life, and I could probably watch this particular
Chase is
segment
like
3
working
times.
out, and
minutes.
he's working out, and he's watching
That's
the
what he
boxing
does. Yeah,
match.
he
on a loop.
fast forwards to the last. Yeah.
Yeah, I just go straight for that scene. I
Yeah.
just think it's so fun. Like I don't know compared to what like when we do the next series of these. God, you're in for some pain, Gabe. You're in for some pain,
Well,
man.
I mean,
I really
Jason
think
X is the worst. I mean, that to me, I mean, right off the bat, I'll say it right now. It's probably the worst one in the series for me.
Yeah, I think Gabe's going to be on vacation that week when we do that episode. He's going to be taking
like,
a
"Oh,
leave
no."
of absence.
Guys, I'm not feeling that well in the morning when
Yeah.
we're prepping. I'm like, no, I'm good.
Yeah, I think they're all fun. I think they all have their own redeeming and qualifying like charms in each of them. I just think 7's the bottom of the barrel for the series. I'd rather watch Jason Goes to Hell. At least has some good visual kills, coming later on. Takes Manhattan's redeeming for the box. There's the sleeping bag kill, but the boxing kill's a lot longer, so that's why that trumps this for me. The sleeping bag kill, I mean, I think is done better in Jason X. But otherwise, like, I just think there's some iconic kills. You get the iconic Jason, you get Kane Hodder. It's an iconic saga, but it's not something I necessarily, how do you say it? I understand why people don't like this set of 4, you know, at least to the fullest extent. Everybody loves 6, but I know people that hate 5, 7, and 8, you know, but somehow like Jason Goes to Hell or Jason X. So I think these ones are absolutely excellent. And it was awesome to be able to rewatch it. Especially, you guys know I do the no rewatch month. I told you guys that. So I was over here watching like all these 2000 horror movies I had never seen for like 60 days of horror. And I'm like, damn, I got to rewatch Friday the 13th.
Now you got to rewatch Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
I'm over here watching all these like weird stuff. Some really dudes. I got to put this out there just for the sake of conversation, but I watched Dominion, that Exorcist prequel.
Oh God, dude. I fucking can't stand that movie. I fucking hate that movie, bro.
I found 2 movies that get you heatedly passionate tonight.
I fucking hate that movie. You don't understand. I've never brought it up that much, but I hate that movie with a passion.
Do you hate it as much as
I have Exorcist believer here.
Perfect. I don't think we've ever played that randomly on here. That's usually an internal joke, so I'm glad they got to see that finally.
Should we play the whole thing for the sake of enjoyment?
Yeah,
sure.
just screw
It's
it.
been a minute. To
preface, there's this clip of me from my Exorcist believer review. Go ahead, make it go.
The Exorcist believer phase. Because we're talking about Dominion, but we should talk about the best one, or just hear what Chase has to say about the best in the Exorcist franchise.
I have Exorcist believer here. Yes, I did buy it. I'm the only person I've seen buy it.
It's just, you can see it like leave my body, bro. Like
you're lost a piece of yourself that day. Like it's like the soul like slowly leaving.
Part of my soul connected with that steelbook for 10
Well, Will also did that little tidbit. Remember, he texted us where he was at Walmart. He went
that's up on the channel too.
He's like, oh my god. He's like, I'm so happy.
That's a short. That's a short. So for those of you that are watching this or listening, I think it's still available on our YouTube channel. Just check out our YouTube shorts. It's Chase at the at Walmart shopping for Exorcist believer. No, but man, too good, man. We've too much fun. Too much fun.
Yeah, and then we've also got Gabe watching his 157th or whatever it was viewing of
Oppenheimer.
Just forgot I did that one. Yeah,
it's actually what he falls to sleep to. He just puts it in and
headphones and all.
Play the music, man. That's all I need.
It's all he needs.
Oh man, but yeah, we'll do the next one. I don't know when we'll do the next one. I mean, this one took like a good year, but maybe we'll see like. Is it December, the next Friday the 13th?
Yeah, we should try to do it this year.
That'd be cool. I'd be down to do some Jason in December. I think that'd be fun.
I will say, though, I kind of agree with Chase. I don't get why these movies get more hate than like Jason X and Jason Goes to Hell, because I think those are going to be. I already had to rewatch Jason Goes to Hell for another video that will probably drop soon. But those are going to be hard for me to rewatch. So those two particularly.
They are. Yeah, those ones are not good. I'm excited for the Gabe take, but Gabe, you want to go ahead and close this out?
Yep. As always, guys, we appreciate you guys for listening. Let us know in the comments down below what you guys think of Jason 5 through 8. Get some conversation going. And as always, like and subscribe. And we appreciate you guys for watching. Catch you in the next one.
Thanks, everybody.
Later.